videos, if it shows up on video on your recording, your notifications do not show up on the video recording.
The recording, yeah, that's what I thought. That's good. Cool. Yeah, it just shows up for you guys because you're live, but it's not actually recording them. So that's the nice part. At least for me. Okay, so let's get... Okay, so I'm going to write down this problem, and then we'll go through it. 2.54 times 10 to the negative 4 grams. 132 milliliters minus log 4.5 times 10 to the 6th times, oh Jesus, I need to start writing smaller. 1.21 times 10 to the negative 2 grams per milliliter minus 0.5855 grams per milliliter. Okay. Cool. Okie dokie. So, can I do this whole problem in my calculator? Yes, but I think that's freaking dangerous because the chances of me not making a mistake in putting this all in at once are pretty slim. So I would do this bite-sized ways, right? I would do each one of these terms individually, and then I'd combine them all in my calculator, right? So let's tackle this guy first. So, first of all, is everybody comfortable with the units being there? Does anything happen to the units? You guys see how this term has grams per milliliter? These two guys are, there's no parentheses around them, but there's implied parentheses, right? So you need to multiply these guys together before you can do the subtraction on either sides of it. You guys picking up what I'm laying down here?
So do the grams per ml all cancel out, or at least two of them, right?
Then nobody cancels out.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But you wouldn't be able to add and subtract between these two terms if they didn't all have the same units, right?
Okay.
Just like I can't have 6 apples plus 7 bananas,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't equal anything because those have different units, right? So in this case, for this problem, in order to do the addition subtraction operations, all of the terms have to have the same units, right? Which, if you didn't know that these guys had to be multiplied together first, right, that might have been tricky for you. Does that make sense? Cool. Why do these guys have to be multiplied together before you can do the subtraction?
Because of PEMDAS?
PEMDAS, right? So parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, right? So these guys, multiplication comes before you do the addition, subtraction, okay? Is everybody comfortable with me on that? Cool. Okay. So, looking at this guy, this first term, sorry, I've got a little bit of lag here. A lot of bit of lag. It's super weird when I get lag between my phone and the Zoom because then I basically have to say things and then wait a bunch of seconds to show it. It's very awkward. Anyways, okay, so putting scientific notation in the calculator was a really important one for this, right, guys? Could you have taken it out of scientific notation and then done the problem? Totally, that would have worked, right? But I with so many other things in chemistry, if you're resisting scientific notation and you're like, maybe I could just take it out and then that'll work, right? Short term, sure, that's a strategy, but long term, it's not going to work, okay? Because there are going to be problems that we solve in this class where if you don't have it in Sino, you won't be able to put it in your calculator. So just be aware of that. It is something that you're going to have to acquaint yourself with and become comfortable with. So 2.54, and then I go secondary. Sorry, move up here. Second, and I have the EE function is what I'm using on this calculator. Again, for some of you, it may be something like that, right? But when I put in my EE, it gives me a little E here. That's the same thing as times 10 to the whatever, right? So the next thing I want to do is negative 4, right? Not minus sign, negative sign. Some calculators, they're interchangeable, but for this one, it's not, okay? And then I will divide that by...
Can you bring your calculator a little bit lower so we can see it? I can't clearly see what you're typing on the calculator.
Like this? Lower or higher?
Yeah, a lot better.
Okay, cool. So 132 equals, cool. So it's giving me this horrible, ugly number, which I can write down here, 1.92. I'm going to round now. So again, if you round at the end, it may give you a slightly different answer, but as long as you're in the ballpark in the last digit, we're good, okay? So if you're rounding to a slightly different digit than I do, that's okay. Times 10 to the negative 6, right? And I can't forget my units, grams per milliliter, right?
Okay.
Everybody cool with me still?
Yes.
Cool.
Hey,
No.
Danica?
Yeah.
So I had the issue on the test where there's a bit of ambiguity with the way it was written out, because they were both implicit x's, which initially I took as variables, and then a normal multiplying x.
Oh, you took the units to be variables?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time initially trying to solve for x because because of the difference between it was a cursive x, and then there was also the normal, just straightforward x, and so I took the difference in the two to mean that one was a variable and the other was just a straightforward.
Oh, you mean you took this to be the variable x?
Yeah, I mean it's more clear in the way that you've written it out, but on the quiz itself,
okay,
they look different, and so because they look different, I took one to be a variable.
Okay.
I eventually realized that was not the case, but it was only when I had
30 seconds left. Sure. Okay, so
I rushed it. Yeah, so I had to rush through and do the math really quickly, and I think that's where a lot of my confusion.
Okay, so just so that we're clear, because I know there was a lot of solving for x on the homework, that's never going to be on a quiz, right? So those operations, that kind of being able to manipulate questions to solve for a particular part of the question is something that we'll need later on, but it's not something that I'm trying to quiz you. I'm not going to make you guys solve for x on a quiz or an exam. That's not chemistry, that's math, right? I just want to make sure that you guys know how to do these kinds of operations in your calculator, so that as we go on to more complicated dimensional analysis problems, you will be able to do those, right? But I'm never going to ask you to solve, and if I was trying to get you to solve for a variable, right, I would have had to give you an equal sign, and there would have had to be something on the other side of it, right? So, but again, I'm not saying this is like you should have known that, or like this should be obvious to you. These are the kinds of things that come up with math that I can't anticipate, right? Because in my mind, this is clearly scientific notation. But for you guys, it maybe feels less scientific notation, more open to interpretation. Does that make sense? So so part of going through and doing this practice is getting you guys to the point where we are all speaking the same language when we're looking at a problem. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yep.
Cool. But I appreciate the feedback on that, because I'm there's no way for me to anticipate the kinds of ways that you guys are going to interpret this stuff differently than me, right? Because I'm just me, and for me it looks totally like, yeah, that way. So cool. And please feel free to give me that kind of feedback, because I really appreciate it, because I cannot imagine all of the different ways that you guys are going to interpret this. And every time I hear of a new way, it allows me to teach to that thing before we get into an assessment, right? So that's definitely something that I will address. And just generally speaking, I think for the homework for my next round, I think I'm going to take out some of the X solving stuff. It is helpful for us mathematically, algebraically, to understand how to do that stuff, but I think it freaks you guys out more than it actually helps you. So for some reason, there's this like and this is probably in the math education literature, which I don't read because I'm not a math teacher. But there's some disconnect that students have between X variables and real problem solving, right? So you have like problem solving over here, which is real things, and those things make sense or they don't, but whatever. It's a totally different kind of problem than when you put an X in front of somebody and like panic attacks ensue. So there's a lot of like weird traumas around these kinds of things that that I just don't think about, because those things are the same to me now, but it's only that way because I've done this so much. So I have to disconnect those things for myself too. So cool. Okay. So now we can do this big old guy here. Oops. So putting the log into the calculator, I think most calculators are pretty straightforward, just have a log button, right? So I would put log and then 4.5 second EE times 10 to the 6th, right? End parentheses times 1.21 second EE negative 2, right? And if you guys did this slightly differently than me, that's totally fine. I'm just showing you how I would probably go through and do this. Sorry. 8, 0, 5 times 10 to the negative 2 grams per milliliter. And then this guy I can just bring straight down, right? So minus 5.855 grams per milliliter. Very ugly. Down into the corner. Everybody still cool with me? Anybody have trouble getting that number? We're all right?
I did. Sorry, I'm like. I did
Are you muted and yelling at me through the computer?
Well, I'm like only seeing myself now, like
Yeah.
on big screen, and I'm trying to figure out how the hell to get out of there. Oh, here we go. Okay.
If you press escape, it'll take you out of the big screen, because I hate the full screen too. I'm with you.
Oh, escape.
Yeah.
Uh,
Escape! I'm trying to get out!
So can you move your calculator up just a smidge?
Yeah.
So you have 8.05, but when I did this in my calculator, and this happened to me on the test also, I got 0.0805.
Yes. So
I got the same thing.
okay, so right now I have my calculator displaying in scientific notation, okay? Secondary function Sci-Eng. There's different buttons for different calculators, right?
Yeah, I don't have Sci-Eng.
So you're
Oh,
gonna.
I have Eng.
Yeah, so that's going to get you into the engineering, which is going to put it into what looks like scientific notation, but actually has 2 digits out front of the decimal. But if I put it back into flow, right? That's what you're seeing,
Oh, yes, okay.
right? So the different calculators have different ways to allow you to see the answer in scientific notation, and that's going to be a really, really helpful thing for you guys to know how to do, right? To be able to go between those two.
So is it the little S-I-N?
No, that's the sign. That's a trig thing.
Oh my gosh.
You want to, the easiest way to figure out how your calculator does something is YouTube your calculator brand name, right? So like Texas Instrument 30X 2S whatever. Put that into the YouTube and then say scientific notation.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gabriella, you have a calculator like mine, so
Yeah, but it gave me the wrong answer. I don't have a 0.0. I have a 0.8.
So then what I'm guessing is that you put the scientific notation in wrong. So you probably put like a wrong exponent somewhere.
That just means a wrong number, wrong digit somewhere.
Yeah.
Because when I turn it into scientific notation, it also doesn't match yours.
Yeah, so that would be an indication that you put something in wrong. So why don't you try it again and see how it goes. Any other questions about how to get that number? Cool. So this is one of the things, as we're getting kind of close to the end, I want to wrap this problem up. But in terms of things that we can talk about in extra Zoom times or in our workshops, learning how to use your calculator is super important, right? And it sucks because I know how to use all of these different calculators, but it's really hard for me to troubleshoot when it's like, here, look at my calculator through the screen, like here's my calculator, you know what I mean? So I can do that, but it is a little more challenging with the distance. So yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and hi Rach. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this all in. So I have 1.92 times 10 to the -6, right? Yeah. Minus 8.05 times 10 to the -2 minus, sorry you guys, I went a little off there, 0.05855. I'm going to do it again just to double triple check. 1.92 -6. Yep. Were you all able to get that? Anyone not able to get that?
I got -1.39.
Do you have it in scientific notation?
Yes.
So you have -1.39 times 10 to the -1, which is the same thing as that number. Does that make sense, Amy?
So the final answer, we wouldn't put it in scientific notation.
You can. They would be equivalent, but just so long as you have the correct answer, that's all I care about, right? There are many different ways to write the correct answer, which is very annoying. But yeah, so for a number like this, I probably wouldn't put it into scientific notation because it's a little bit harder to look at in scientific notation. But anything that was correct and equivalent to this would be fine. If you rounded in different places, also you might have gotten a slightly different number. That's also fine, right? Any other questions? We're okay. Okay. Oop.